Всем привет! Я из Майами. В этот раз мы поменялись местами. Артем из Лос-Анджелеса. Артем, как тебе вообще Лос-Анджелес? How's it treating you?
Слушай, I'm a Florida kind of guy, Let's put it this way.
I know you like it, and I'm starting to get used to Florida as well, even though I know in my hearts of hearts, my passion is Los Angeles. I can't wait to get back on my hikes and my motorcycle, not your motorcycle, even though I'm
Listen,
enjoying getting to traffic on your motorcycle more at this point.
habits are hard to cure,
It's true.
So it
It's
just
true.
sometimes you gotta recognize what habit is good for you and what habit is not that great for you.
That is also very true, and that's why I am in Florida trying to figure it out. We'll 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 see how it goes for me as well. So I want to do a quick update on some of the things that we have been doing, you and I. So last time we had met with Annie. Annie did a pitch for us for her school. She was interested in raising $250,000 to be able to help with some of her marketing efforts. It sounded like you were very interested. You might still be interested, but ultimately you decided to do some due diligence and have some thought around some of the things that you looked into and found out. Do you mind maybe sharing some of those thoughts?
Um, the idea is great, actually. I love the idea. I think I was thinking about it a lot, and it's really hard to teach children something online because kids they get bored really quick and they need to be engaged, and you need to work with them and channel the emotions and connection with them. Otherwise they can't focus, and most importantly, they don't enjoy the process. And in order for kids to learn and behave, they need to be enjoying what they're learning. And I thought about it because we've done a lot of online classes. We've done chess, and we've done some other things online during COVID. It was okay. We did it. It was okay, but it wasn't amazing, because of what I've mentioned. And I was thinking that acting is the only probably natural program that fits very well into an online platform, because acting typically is observed digitally, right? Like we'll look at the movies and we'll look at the content digitally. And
Correct.
so it feels very natural to do acting on camera and to observe other kids acting on camera. And so I think if there is the best fit for online classes for kids, acting is that fit. I think acting is the best fit. So because of that, I think that the business has a lot of potential, but it doesn't have enough right now of substance in order for it to be valued that much. And by substance, I mean curriculum is limited. It's very short. It's good, but it largely depends on the execution of the person who is doing the curriculums. For example, it would be really hard for me using the curriculum to go hire somebody off the street and to train them so that they're as good as the person that is doing it right now for the company.
Correct.
So scalability is in question. And also the numbers don't really work because the business does have revenue, but that revenue is spread over 100 existing students, and just sheer number of students is very limited. And asking for a valuation over $2 million, I think with 100 students, with no, that they're not paying themselves, nobody's making money essentially on paper in the company. So then the real profitability is much smaller. And in order to get the money back, once everybody's going to start getting paid, there has to be a clear path.
Correct.
So the company is not there yet. So I don't see it's a $2 million company at this point in time. I think at best
So let me
is like
summarize just for
350, maybe
y-
400.
yeah, let me summarize for just for the basics. It seems like the potential is there. It seems like there's an opportunity there. Question is the value properly being presented by Annie for the current state or where the company is is currently at? And then the question is, will that 250 that will be invested, will it also be spent wisely? Because that was the other factor that you and I talked about, that, hey, based on previous trajectory, based on current know-how within the organization, is there sort of that person that knows how to really crack the code and say, what is the most optimized way to take the investment that comes in, let's say even at $2 million evaluation, and then can actually turn into a profit. And currently that formula has not been resolved. So the alternative path to this is for Annie to kind of work on her business, make an informed step forward in terms of figuring out, okay, how do I scale this, and how do I test market some of my strategies at a limited perspective to see if I'm able to turn the profit that I'm getting from the company, even if it's minimal, and then invest it back into the company and see if I can bring in additional students on whom I can test out the theory of, let's get 2 instructors in place. Let's get 3 instructors in place. Let's get some sort of scalability going here, even before they're making a profit. Because making a profit seems like a very high level thing right now to ask of her. But actually proving the business model as being investable is something that makes sense. Now, the question is, does she do that on her own dime, on the profits that come from the company, or does she offer somebody like you, myself, or somebody else, maybe a better alternative proposal saying, okay, I'm going to reduce my evaluation, but I need the funds to be able to test this theory that I feel so certain about now that I've got the right people in place. Let's prove it and then raise, right? The
Yeah,
full
I mean,
evaluation.
there are a lot of things that are off, right? Like the growth rate that they had from year to year was like around 20-30%, and she's projecting a 400% growth. Like, where is that coming from? Am I bringing that growth? So why am I paying for that growth up front? I mean, there's just a lot of income. So the
Well,
bottom line is that,
I think the way she pitched it is, I'll use that 250 to actually show you a proven business model and how I can grow that business to that level.
but that's not how it works, right?
Correct.
You have to show. But anyways, I think great idea. I like the idea. It actually intrigues me. I want to see where she goes with this. It has a lot of potential. But it's very, very early, and there's a lot of
So
tough decisions.
the good news is we do want to give an opportunity to all entrepreneurs to come on this channel, speak to us. We get to ask the right questions. They get to answer some of these questions. We may not be the investor ultimately, but maybe somebody on the other side who's watching this could potentially become the investor or use the information that we are seeking during this podcast and be able to ask some of the additional questions that are needed to get to the bottom line and say, hey, I think that's an investable business I want to get in, right?
Yeah, yeah, but it's a good idea. I love the idea. I think it's one of the better
Super.
ideas.
So we did have another person that I wanted to actually bring on line today, which is Vova. He has not responded, so I'm assuming he's either closing a big deal of an investment already, or he's busy doing other things. So we'll reach out to him once again sometime in the near future. So for now, what I wanted to do is kind of get back to our regularly scheduled program, some of the things that we wanted to discuss previously that might be helpful to other folks. And that is, some of the insights about what you've learned, what I've learned about running your own business and running your own organizations. And we have a number of topics that you and I came up with. Some of them were driven primarily by you, and I'll support them. So we'll definitely be able to sort of dig a little bit deeper. And then if anybody has any questions or comments about any topic that we covered today, you guys are welcome to use the chat or the comment section of this video, and we'll be able to have this be a two-way conversation for all of us. Sound good?
So I want to talk about staff. I want to talk about employees. It's recently I've been thinking about it as I'm dealing with some employees that I'm currently is quitting and potentially is gonna target my schools and try to maybe steal an account or two and things of that nature. And I've been thinking about it a lot because I went through a lot of staff through my 20 years of doing this, and there's this employee type, and I want to talk to you about it, see what you think. Everything looks good, so they interview really well, and they have good experience, and they have good energy, and you can feel that they will deliver. A person that kind of goes above and beyond and a go-getter and everything we're looking for in a candidate, right? We're looking for somebody who's gonna be self-motivated, highly motivated, somebody who can work hard, who can deliver results, and most importantly, a person who takes pride in their own work, which means that they will try to do a quality work regardless of what happens. But with that person, very often you have another side of qualities that are very negative. And frankly, I came to the conclusion recently that I don't want to hire people like that anymore. And so what I mean is that that person sometimes comes with a very, very high ego. That person comes with an attitude that they know everything and that they are so essential for the operation of everything that they do that without them, everybody is kind of going to fail, right away, or fall apart, or they're the key person. And very often those two things are very much connected. And so going forward, I will be looking at eliminating those candidates. And it's a really hard elimination because it's really hard to find a person with all of those qualities that I mentioned and to let that person go before you even hire them because you recognize that their ego is too big and that they think too much of themselves, and there will be a problem. So with these people, when you hire them, they work for you for a few years and they do a great job. They actually do. But then there is a fallout, and there is always a fallout. 50% fallout, 70% no, it's 100% of fallout. And it can be all kinds of ways that it can happen. They can quit, not in a good way. They can take staff with you. They can create negative emotions and negative feelings in the organization. They can sue you. I mean, there's all kinds of things that tend to happen with these people. And I refuse to hire these people anymore because you kind of place a bet on them, but the bet always ends up the same way. Like there's upside and then there's a huge downside. And so not hiring these people anymore. Nobody talks about this. This is like very unique content right now, but you gotta check the ego of a person you hire. You gotta find out if they are in love with themselves so much, and that's why they're delivering they're delivering such a good product, or because they just care about what they do. What do you think about that, Eric?
So it sounds like you already made a decision for yourself. So let's start there. And I think I respect your decision, and I think there's something to that. My experience has been a little bit different. I wouldn't put anybody into a particular box, right? So I tend to try to treat every individual as an individual and work with them based on some of the interactions that I have with them, and then adjust my expectations. And this is very important. Your expectations are primarily the things that ultimately, in my opinion, get us as entrepreneurs and people who are providing work for some of these staff members into trouble. So let's talk about maybe expectations for just a second. What are your expectations from your employees? Is your expectation for them to constantly think in their mind they're an employee, they're coming in, punching out, done with their work, gone? Or do you have other expectations?
I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, it really depends on the employee, right? Like some employees are more manual employees that are less independent in their thinking and procedures. Some are by definition are different, right? So who are we talking about? In reality, I want my employee a higher level employee, and this situation typically happens with higher level employees. I want them to be mm, self self-managed and look deeper into what they're doing and in the company, and to really understand their placement in the whole structure, and to ask themselves a question of how can I improve the whole structure for the sake of the quality of work that I do personally and for the sake of the whole structure. So no, these employees, I want them to do more than just punch in and do the work.
So if that is the expectation and that is the power that you're giving them already at the get-go, which I fully support and agree with, I think with that expectations comes a potential consequence where this person says, hey, I am taking on this responsibility. This is sort of my business as well as somebody else's, right? And I'm responsible for the success of that business. So you're already giving that person that ego boost that you're talking about. And therefore, there is a potential backfire consequence that comes along with it. So this is where, in my opinion, what I do is try to weigh out, is the things that this person recommending or the ego trip that this person is going through, is it a benefit for the organization and leveling up everybody else around them? Or is this simply an ego boost where a person is just going on their own and now taking it so much further that they're detrimental to the business itself? What I'm hearing from you is you're talking about the latter, which is a situation where somebody just went completely off the rail and said, hey, not only am I the owner, I know what's best for the organization, even though I have a partner, quote unquote, with Artem, and I need to check and balance some of the ideas and suggestions that I'm making and maybe some of the decisions I'm making without even consulting with anyone. So if the latter, again, is your concern, then I think it's a question is, are you able to build those partner relationships if you're looking to have somebody take so much responsibility in your
So
business?
I think it's more about kind of moral qualities of an individual. So it's about a moral compass that the person might have. It's not about I let them own the project and I let them to bask in the sun of being that higher level employee in front of other employees. But it's how they act beyond that is not something that I control. It's something that I can try to figure out if they will have that quality or not. So my point is that when you are hiring that person, it's really hard to say no to such a person that will be delivering these results and will own the work product. But you really need to vet for uh, corrupted character traits that will potentially lead for them not handling their ego well and for them not to have a moral compass to do things that are inappropriate that I would never do because I know that that's a bad thing to do. But
Correct.
when you're hiring these people, there is a tendency for entrepreneur to get so excited about what they can do for you that we have a tendency to overlook all of the negative things that will come with that hire and the headache at a minimum that is just not worth it. It's better to dig deeper and find somebody as good but without the flaw, or to even get somebody weaker but not have the fallout later. And the bigger problem is once your organization gets bigger, then if you have enough of these corrupt apples inside the organization, they can take you down, like completely. So that's another danger. So if you have a tendency to hire these people and they get ingrained into your organization and they tend to kind of spread within the organization their influence, you get a few of these people, they will take you down. So I do not hire these people anymore with this kind of character traits. That's
Yeah, I
it.
kind of figured that. So my approach is different. I tend to hire A players, and I have this old saying that the A players tend to compete with A players and bring on A players as well. You hire a B player, you tend to get additional B players or C players, most likely. They'll be around that sort of structure. But I also, as we spoke a couple of episodes before, I think when we had Victoria on the podcast, is that I'm very very quick to fire. So let's talk about that for a second, because maybe that might be the sort of that dividing truth of sense. What do I mean by quick to fire? I believe that I pay attention to details about how people handle themselves. And in this different situations that may not be related to the stuff that you're talking about taking away clients, like that's too extreme. You're not going to notice that until the last step of the process, right? Before they leave and go out the door. So that's an extreme. But there are little tall tales that people tell, and you notice those patterns in very basic conversations in terms of delivery, communications to customers, reporting, of the cuff type of conversations about status updates, right? So a lot of those tells is what gives me a clear perspective about what to expect from this person and what this person may or may not be able to do. So instead of setting up sort of a crutch where upfront I hire a person that's a lower level employee, and then knowing the risks that I'm going into, you don't know. Those risks might be even worse, believe it or not. And you lose productivity and effectiveness of your business in the process, and you're still paying a high rate for that person. So therefore, I'd rather pay a high rate for an A-class individual, mitigate my risks based on conversations, and then very quickly react and say, warning one, Morning 2, you're out.
So this is great. You're 100% correct. So hire slow, fire fast, right? And this is like one of those mantras that are easy to say and hard to do
Agreed.
for reasons that there are a lot of psychological reasons when you're actively managing a company and you have a good employee who is potentially not a good employee, but you're kind of hoping that they are. But the point is that I think the solution is twofold, right? Is to vet them on a pre-screening harder on their character traits, and then to get rid of them as fast as possible as soon as you see the flaws. Now, there's a
Right.
question to you though.
Yeah.
So, what are the flaws
Yeah.
in their behavior or action that would be red
Fire
flags
them.
enough for you sufficiently to get rid of them? As in, it's easy to say, I'm gonna fire them fast,
Yeah.
but like, what will be the trigger? So, for example, let's say you're hiring me, okay? And I pass your interview, like, wow, this guy is qualified, he's gonna be good. And I don't sound like a jerk. I'm giving you all the right answers because, yeah, I'm playing you a little bit. So I got you. And now you hired me. And now I'm in charge of your department, right? Let's say you gave me 5 people to manage. What are the red flags that you will be looking for me that will be justifiable enough to get rid of me pertaining to that specific issue that we're discussing?
Sure. So I think a lot of my stuff is around performance because I do want to make sure that I justify my firing based on performance, right? Now, performance is something that is very um, subjective, right? And for me, performance, I pick up on very little things such as how they deal with other employees, how they deal if they're leading a team, how they deal with my customers, how they follow up, little white lies. Those are the
So
little tells.
I need specifics though.
No, I'll get there. Those are the little things that I pay attention to. So when we talk about specifics, and to be honest with you, my churn has been very low. So I've been successful in being able to, by example, and let me talk this through slowly, just to make sure it resonates. By showing that I can quickly fire somebody that is a very high valuable and in demand type of employee, it sends a signal to the rest of the team what I'm about and what my expectations are from everybody else. And I don't allow that spoil to spread even for a second. That's number one. The second part is in regards to what are the specifics. The specifics are when I hear things that, we provided a status report and I see things on that status report that are not aligned with what is actually on the ground. And I can pretty much tell what is and what is not based on some of the reporting we have within the company. That already signals to me um, what the thresholds are of that individual, right? Is that individual going to do that same thing when it comes to bigger things? Again, something on a report cannot be caught by a customer because you could tell a white lie and it will just pass to the next week, and next week that thing will be done. But for me, it's already a little red flag that says, okay, I got to be careful with this person because if they're able to tell a little white lie here, I am certain they can then scale that at something larger. That's number one. Number two, when somebody takes credit for somebody else's work, for me, that is a major red flag. And especially if I know how to track and see what's happening. Whenever somebody is not promoting one of their team members, even if the promotion is not needed there, those are the things that I pay attention to, that I say, you know what, this is a person we have different ethics. Our
So
ethical are
what's
off.
the bar for you to get rid of me? So like, give me a few specific things that I would do
Yeah.
that would get me out of the company. I'm just trying to understand.
Little white lies, taking credit for somebody else's work. And the other
I
thing that
do
I
it
think,
once, or I do it like what are the how often I have to do these small little things for you to kick me?
yeah, for me, it's very simple. It's 2 times. Fool me once.
Even small things. So for example, my report, I spiced it up a little bit
Yeah.
and the
I
reality is
think
not
I'm
as
very
good.
big about giving feedback. So I'm very big about providing feedback in real time on things that I'm seeing and my expectations. So I think what's important is, and I hear this a lot from some of my friends, that, hey, I want to get out of the operations of my business, right? You could do that if everything is tracked. If you're able to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and look at the things and say, okay, that looks good, that looks good, this is not so good. I'm going to actually ask a question, a follow-up question during our next stand-up call. And I'm going to join the stand-up call this week just to kind of
Yeah.
check in on this one thing. And once I'm involved, people know, oh, this guy's paying attention, and he's asking the right questions, and he's challenging me on the things that I'm reporting against or the things that I'm saying. So when they feel that I'm involved and engaged, that's when all the red flags come up, and it's a 1-2 punch. So once I give a warning and set an expectation, two, hey, remember we talked about that? That's not going to work here.
Okay,
Later.
so let's talk about psychology, okay?
Yeah.
So you're a founder, owner, operator, right? And you have a guy who is valuable. You can see that that person can produce, right? And you will have self-discipline to kick that individual out for minor discrepancies like this?
Yes,
Really?
because for me, those are tells of major conflicts that he and I or she and I are going to run into in the future. We're going to run into them, maybe not on a very high value project, but on a high value situation that will happen
Right.
in the future.
Good for you, Eric. Good for you. Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs will pick the comfort of hoping and believing that everything is going to be all right and kind of working with that individual because of their intrinsic value to the company. They will not have um, the guts to get rid of them and start from scratch, essentially, to look for a new
I'll give you
person.
an
And I think,
example. I'll give you an example where this example, I think this happened in the last 2 years. This example will drive the message home because the costs involved of staying with the status quo are very, very high. We quoted a project that a startup that I told you about, the little touch panels for kids to be able to track their activities. It's a project called Earn a Kid. So 4 months worth of work should be very simple, turned into a 2-year project. First team that we outsourced, I right away told my partner saying, "Hey, you know what? I see an issue here. I don't think this is a good idea. Let's change the team." He was very adamant saying, Eric, I've never made changes this fast. I made the change right away. We went to another guy. The other team took on. They got the design completed, everything effective, so on and so. We got to a certain point where I said, you know what? This team needs to be augmented as well. The core team is okay, but there's some augmentations that I will make. He said, Eric, no more changes. We're going to stick with what we've got. And I stuck with it. 2 years later, on a 4-month project, we
sure,
just
sure.
got to the point where it needs to be delivered. And when you calculate that, that's millions of dollars.
No,
And
for
there's
sure. So we gotta be no matter what, we have to be self-disciplined on that, and that's kind of where I think that's the toughest part, because very often that that person is off. Like that you even know that it's not gonna be good at the end of the story. You do, but there's a tendency to hope and same like in relationships, right? Like this is the same personality factor that causes us to delay firing an
You know what's
individual.
interesting? The little that you and I talked about in relationships, I'm very different, and I'm a hopeless romantic. So there, unfortunately, my mindset is a little different, and I hope for the best. But looking into retrospective, right?
You can't.
If, no, but if I look into the retrospective and I assess the situation, if I did not make an adjustment, or if I do not, sorry, make an adjustment in my life moving forward and say, I don't want to hope for something to happen. I got to look at things black and white as they are. Um, your expectations, going back to where I started, is what gets you into trouble. So the fact that you're expecting something to happen from this employee, like something will pivot, something will change, something will adjust, what I'm thinking about isn't really what is going to change the entire sort of structure of my organization. I think that expectation is what needs to be completely removed from the conversation, and the focus should be on what is happening currently. Does this serve my business? Does this serve my relationship? Does this get me to the goals that I want to set moving forward? And if not, there's other people out there that can step in into that role.
Yeah, and the reality is with relationships, and we're gonna shift to a different question, but relationships are the same as a corporation, as in there is Eric organization, and to that organization you're inviting a person that will be taking a high level position in that organization, probably the highest. And we have a tendency to disregard the seriousness of that position and application process to be part of Eric's organization in personal relationships. And we shouldn't. We should treat it as if you are hiring a top C-level person into your organization, which is Eric's life. And I think your attitude towards employees and hiring, if it would be transferred into your personal life, I think it would serve you greatly. So
It's difficult
that's
to have that mind shift because
I
relationships for me
understand.
are always
Yeah, you
about
told
feelings.
me. Yeah,
Always about feelings.
yeah.
So I'm thinking about it. I'm getting there, hopefully, but ultimately it's a mind shift because you know we all grew up on a different idea and a different concept of what a relationship is about and how relationships are built, and therefore I think it takes some education to be able to reverse engineer that and say, you know what, that may not work long term. That
It
doesn't work.
does, but the truth is absolute. It's not
Agreed.
relative in this
Agreed.
case,
So
unfortunately.
let's shift
I want
topic.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to talk about. So I've been talking to a friend of mine about business, and
Yeah.
I'm a little bit further along in the business journey than most of my friends, but all of them have successful companies and successful businesses. And very often conversation goes into the following direction, and their face changes from like normal to pale. And let me tell you what happens.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So I start telling them stories about like IRS audits and lawsuits and fines and backstabbing and employees starting their own companies, stealing contracts, all kinds of war stories that I'm starting to tell them. And initially, they listen them to the stories that are fun. But then I ask them the question, well, what do you do? As in, what is your insurance situation? What is your contract situation? How you handle your HR? What is your compliance structure for your staff? How are you filing your taxes? Are you classifying your staff as 1099 or W-2? And that's when their face is starting to change because they're starting to realize that any day they might end up in a situation when they're effectively out of business because of all of those risks that as a young entrepreneur you don't consider because you're so excited to be in the game and to do the project and to grow the company that and frankly you don't have the money kind of to focus on those minor things at that point in time, but those things that take you out of business, those are the things that basically get you to bankruptcy. And so I want to talk about specifically. There are a lot of aspects to discuss, but let's start with litigation
Yeah.
and insurance protection. So uh, the number of lawsuits that are being filed against businesses is increasing dramatically. In fact, United States as a society was really litigious society before, but post-pandemic something has shifted, and then that trend escalated even further. So everybody wants to sue now for anything and everything, and a lot of businesses are underinsured. And I urge people to take a look at their strategies, especially if you already have something to lose as a business. So like there is a threshold, I think, where restarting the business would be too expensive when your brand has grown enough and your name is recognizable and you have enough clients and so forth, when you will not be able to restart easy. As soon as you reach that point, whatever that point might be, in my mind, it's around $1 million in revenue. You really need to tighten up your game as far as insurance coverage and litigation coverage. What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
I think it's critically important. So some of the clients that I work with specifically have, set restrictions about getting that contract or working with them unless you have, let's say, $2.5 million policy in place. So those are sort of the guidelines that I sort of started with, and I never looked elsewhere. I think it's critically important that you have insurance, regardless of what business you're in. I think it's important for many reasons. One of the things that Alex had talked about when starting his startup for medical, company, again, he is not offering medical advice of any kind. He's not doing any patient work. He's essentially calculating what does it cost to do an X-ray on an arm, right? So basic mathematics. Still, he was insured, and still he used that insurance because a patent troll decided to come to his door and say, "Hey, I think you owe me some money for
Yeah,
something that we discovered."
and
And he
and
went to
also I
two and a
want
half years of litigation to get that, taken care of.
And I also want to emphasize that general business liability insurance is not enough, okay? Because very often entrepreneurs, they think, okay, well, I got my insurance covered, I got GL, right? But in reality, that covers very little. There is insurance for owner negligence and omissions. There is insurance related to employees. And so once you get to the point when you have something to lose, you really need to kind of look at all of the policies. Like, for example, who has cybersecurity policy now? But cybersecurity is a thing, like it's a real thing now. Before, it wasn't a thing, but now if you're handling payments and you're handling information and data, there are vectors of attack on every company online. And so my point is that you really need the when you get to the point where you have something, when you have enough built that you will be upset that you will lose it, you really need to take a look at an actual, I would want to say, insurance strategy. I think you need to have cyber insurance. I need to have liability insurance. You need to have employment insurance, and not just standard employment insurance, but also that covers litigation related to discrimination. That's really popular right now, especially in California. California has departments that are only dealing in finding small little businesses and suing them uh, just to make money. That's how the industry is working. And cyber insurance, I think, is also important. So insurance is important, and I highly, I want, if anyone from this podcast goes and protects themselves and saves their business, I think we've done something important here.
I totally agree with you, and I would say I would double down on that and say not only do you want to have insurance, but you also want to have a good attorney on staff or at least on retainer to be able to deal with things that come up all the time. I know everybody is very comfortable today saying, "Hey, I've got ChatGPT, I'm okay." You're not. You could use ChatGPT on certain things, but there are certain things that just require even a phone call that is needed from a legal attorney as opposed to not. I mean, I have basic stuff. You have an SOW signed, you've got the letter of intent signed, you've got video recording of a guy, saying, yes, let's hire these two guys. We're going to work on this project, do this and that and the other. And then all of a sudden he wakes up in the morning and after a month of work and getting the bill, he just simply says, oh, hold on. We never agreed to you doing this work or having you be hired. And this is literally, this is 2 months ago type of situation for me. Somebody came by a referral. I typically don't take referrals of companies I don't know. This is a company, and I don't mind disclosing, it's a company called Geometria out of New York that basically they have an ad business. Here, I'll share. They have an ad business for digital screens, LEDs, 3Ds, whatever. So this is a company, it seems very reputable. They've got 2,000 screens. They're very big. They work with Tesla. They have all these different clients that they list. They've got a wonderful team of employees. And then you've got this wonderful, guy in the middle by the name of Dennis. So I called some of my, what I typically do, just kind of check in on people, right? Through word of mouth, whatever. So I got sort of a feedback loop saying, hey, you probably don't want to deal with this guy. He's not, not very reputable. He does kind of things that not by the book. He's got a personality that's kind of difficult to manage. But then I've got a referral that says, hey, help him out. He needs your help. He's got an issue. He's got developers that are, putting him like months and months behind budget. I call him. We discuss. We say, okay, we've got to do a little bit of discovery. Let's hire two guys, bring on two guys from my team, do a little bit of discovery of where you guys are at, what the code is like, where the loopholes are. Are you good with that? He's on video. He's got a contract. He's got a letter of intent, SOW. Everything was clearly documented. And the guy says, I didn't give you the green light. Then I played the video for him. I mean, I literally have the video if you want. I literally played the video where all of us are in the meeting. We were discussing. It's like, yeah, this is our dating sort of first date type of scenario. Yeah, let's sign the LOI. Let's sign the non-disclosure, all this stuff. And then he says, no, I didn't hear. So now we got his attorney involved. We went through his operations people, accountant department, 4 weeks worth of discussions. Ultimately got to this attorney. Attorney says, yeah, I'm going to look at this case. It seems like you guys have all the evidence, but hey, Don't say anything because we were going to sue you. Well, here I'm saying something. Please sue me. uh, the facts are blatant. We already filed, a lawsuit against him for the amount due. He never sent us a cancellation. It's like a ongoing retainer that renews unless you give a 30-day notice. Never sound a 30-day notice. Bottom line is, this is a situation where this happens every single day in business, and unless you have a team around you that is able to support you in even basic situations that seems like they would never happen. Like, I literally thought this would not happen, other than some of the referrals I got from some of the people that know him. This is the cost of doing business. This is one of those situations where you say to yourself, okay, is this $30,000 really worth that guy's reputation? Well, here you and I are talking about him. Hopefully other people will talk about him to avoid having to do business with him in the future. You know what I mean? Like, is that really worth the amount of money that you saved on not paying us and having us, expense the litigation process? That's the cost of doing business. And I think it's important that you do have proper accounting, for legal advice, proper insurance in place for any business. Those are fundamentals of doing business, I think, anywhere, but in the United States specifically, 100%.
Yeah, and again, they're really important, and it's really hard to think about those things when you're in the trenches, when you're just starting and you're focused on your product and you're figuring this out. But once you get to the point where there's something for you to actually lose here, you gotta button down a little bit. Also, taxes. A lot of people, not even people that are um, want to cheat the system or want to fake the taxes or whatnot. It's just people careless about their attitude towards taxes, and they're kind of assume that, oh, I'm gonna write this off, I'm gonna write that off, and I'm gonna just do this in this way. IRS is not stupid. Like, when when they come and they look at your books, and if your stuff is shady, they're not going to even argue with you. They're just going to say, well, this is shady, you have to pay the bill. And if you want and file a lawsuit against United States of America and fight them on that, good luck to you. My point is that, you know people write things off, and IRS is also not, they're not crazy either, as far as they don't want to kill the little guy. But if you're getting to the point when if you were to look at your operation from the perspective of IRS and it doesn't look good to you, chances are it's just not good. So you want to make sure that you're not doing shady stuff, because you will pay for it. And so that's, again, once you get bigger, that becomes a bigger question and a problem. And then, as you mentioned, keeping the books properly is also very important. So
Yeah, it's critical to have that structure in place for multiple reasons. Number one, not only from an audit perspective, but it's also important for you to also understand how you're operating, where you're profitable, where you're not profitable, and where your money is going. If you're not counting it, right, you're not making it. Because
yeah, and in
ultimately,
reality, you might end up with some shocking figure at the end of the year when you actually have to add money to your business. And it didn't have to happen that way, right? If you would have been a little bit more on top of your numbers, you would have not ended up in that situation. So, anyways, this is boring stuff. When I was first starting, I would hate people telling me this and listening to this, but it's important. It's so important, and all my friends are scared now because I've been talking to them, and I've been telling them like what the penalty for this would be, what would happen here, what the lawsuit cost is, and so they're all freaking out now. So I want to freak everybody out a little bit too. So
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think people don't think about it when the numbers are small. People start worrying about it when the numbers get larger. But the real essence is the way the numbers get larger, and the way you keep those numbers large and within your pocket is by thinking about these things early on, and to do some preventative, proactive things as opposed to reactive. A lot of times, and I'll be the first to admit, living in Chicago, I did a lot of reactive things. A lot of the stuff that I did from an accounting standpoint made no sense. And it was not a smart way to structure a business that has the potential to scale and take on larger clients. Now, once I was in California and my business shifted and the numbers were completely different, that played a completely different role. So sometimes you have to go through that learning opportunity. And I think for, different strokes for different folks, but my recommendation is start early.
Yeah, and that idea about proactive versus reactive is amazing idea. I think you're spot on. You want to try to be proactive about everything. Like last point I want to mention regarding proactive versus reactive. When you scale a business, there are two ways to scale it. One is you just pile up the business, and then you deal with the consequences. So you get all the sales, you grow, you have all the new clients, and you got nothing else. And you just try not to die under the pressure of all new business you got. And that's how I operated most of my life, and I think that's how most entrepreneurs operate. They get the business, and then they fight through it, and then they upgrade their infrastructure to serve that business. But by the time they upgraded their infrastructure to serve that business, they pile up more new business. And then that infrastructure is not sufficient anymore. And they're again like going crazy because their business is falling apart. It's a stressful way to get things done. It's a high risk way of get things done. So it's better to actually proactively set up the structure for your growth going forward and then grow into it. You have less headaches. You have better quality of whatever you're doing, and your risks go down significantly. But it's really hard because you kind of have to invest into the growth initially and think about it upfront. And typically in early stages, people just don't do that. And I think that would save a few years of life due to less stress to the owners and entrepreneurs if they would be a little bit more proactive. So that's, I think, was also an important
And I think
point.
it's a good idea to regularly check in with your CPA and actually have that one-on-one meeting. It will take an hour, but it will pay dividends because what you do is you get a snapshot of what you've done in the past, how your trajectory is going, and also be able to make some assumptions based on what is up and coming. And then do a check and balance every year to say, hey, do I need to reassess my current situation and possibly adjust based on some of the things that I'm noticing that are trending. So I totally agree. Do you want to switch to another topic that you and I wanted to cover?
We can get to the conclusion, but I'll just mention to your point here, and we can open it up further in the next discussion. Is having a good budget. A lot of small companies, they don't really have a budget, and I know some wealthy people that have a budget for their life, not even for their business, just for their life. Because having a budget and going to CPA once in a while or once every 6 months, it's actually not enough because you're not gonna your reaction time will be delayed by 6 months, and by the time you react, you're already month 8. So you're already late by 8 months. So you really want to stay on top of your budget on a monthly basis. You want to look through it. If I would be running a smaller company, I would be literally waking up with my budget. Like I would wake up, I would look at my budget, I would see, okay, the revenue came in, the expenses are too high. Then you can make adjustments right away, and you don't have runaway expenses, or you don't have lack of revenue that you thought you will have, but then you didn't, and then you don't have enough revenue to cover your labor. So budget is really important, and I would advise for people to learn how to do the budget themselves. You don't need a CPA firm. You just like create the budget and run it diligently every day, and do the same for your personal life. Like I don't do it, but I have wealthy friends that do it, and they know exactly what their investments are and their expenses are, the household expenses. Because if you're wealthy, that those numbers run really high, and they can run away as well because you have all this
Well, the good
staff
news
and
is,
things happen.
yeah, the good news is that today there's a lot of tools that automate a lot of this stuff. So I'll give you an example. One of the clients that I did work for is a company called Rocket Mortgage. And one of the acquisitions we did for billions of dollars is a company called Truebill. It's a mobile app that basically gave them an opportunity to monitor all of the transactions that you have on your credit cards, bank accounts, etc. We saw an opportunity saying, hey, let's buy out Truebill. Let's rebrand it for Rocket Money and basically say, only are we going to be able to track people's credit scores in assessment of mortgages, which is what this company does for a living. But now we're able to take an additional data point. We can determine how much money are they making, how are they spending their money. So now we could actually historically tell, is this a 730 credit score person, really? Or is this actually a 500 credit score person that's manipulating the numbers and playing the games? So this way we can pre-qualify people in advance for their potential mortgage. That's the benefit for that company. But the benefit for individuals is that every single month, every single day in real time. You see your expenditures, you see your income, and you're able to see categorized level transactions. Are you within that budget? So essentially, depending on tools like QuickBooks, on Rocket Money at this point, you're able to essentially in real time gauge how you're doing based on either perceived budgets or actual budgets that you set for yourself.
Yeah. So the reality is, and this is to summarize, is hire slow, fire fast. Make sure you get the insurance coverages and you are buttoned down as far as potential litigation. Don't mess with IRS, or at least don't mess with them the way you would not want somebody to mess with you if you were IRS.
Right.
And be proactive instead of reactive. That's very important. And to help you with that, have a nice budget and use the softwares, because before, when I was starting the business, the only thing I had offline QuickBooks, right?
Yeah, you're doing manual data entry. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And nowadays things are so much easier. It's a shame if you're not controlling your own budget and your own destiny this way. So I think there was a productive we had today, maybe a little boring, but important things.
It's important stuff. And I'll add one more. I think it's important that you treat everything based on facts, not based on expectations. And that has to do with relationships, with people, business, etc. I think it's important that you get rid of the expectations of, well, it could be better, or that person could be good for me, or that person can potentially do the work and not have a negative impact down the line, even though they will. So get rid of the expectations, live in reality, and take proactive action across the board.
Yeah, facts
Cool.
are facts. Everything else doesn't exist.
When are you taking my motorcycle out? I want to see some video.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think maybe tomorrow and for the weekend.
Let's do
That's
it.
what I'm
Enjoy.
thinking. But
Enjoy.
I've been kind of working a lot and kind of
I get it.
not in the mood
But
for the
get
motorcycle.
out there, go to Malibu, enjoy Los Angeles and California to its full potential, so that you leave with something good in your body.
I know. I what the biggest revelation for me in this trip so far
Tell me.
is that I like Florida even more. And
I hear that.
and yeah, and it wasn't like that before. It's just, I don't know if maybe I have changed, or maybe perhaps United States is even more polarized in the past few years because of the things that are happening. But to me, at this point in time, Florida is the only place, for me personally, is
Correct.
the only place, I'm gonna quote our president, of common sense. So and I like common sense,
Correct.
that relates to that factual approach to life. But that's why I like Florida even more after being here for a week.
I totally get it, and I respect your opinion, even though
I'm not advertising Florida or saying that California is bad. I'm just
good news is I'm
opinion.
enjoying Florida while I'm here. I'm missing the hills and the visual aspects, but I'm enjoying it. And there's a lot of people here, so you actually left Florida at the right time, because the traffic is insane. I literally started riding your motorcycle more as of the last time I spoke to you, because I could just get from one point to. We went to Fayena 2 days ago. It took us 2.5 hours to park a car.
Really?
It took me 20 minutes to get there today.
Yeah. I always escaped Florida during the Art Basel and during the winter music conference, or whatever that time when there's like all the ultra. Yeah, I always escaped because the city just becomes like a nightmare place to be.
They get a water taxi going though, so you could go from downtown to the beach on a water taxi, which is kind of nice. Bottom line is, I think it's good to visit new places, travel, be proactive, and don't live in expectations.
And not reactive. So have a wonderful day, Eric. I'm gonna go work out now and do some work.
I'll see you soon.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
You too. See ya.